My brother told me a story. I believe it was the mid 70s. He was in the bank, and this guy in front of him talked to a lady who was in front of him. And he says to her, "Hey, lady, your arsk is hanging out." That wasn't the right response. That was rude. But frankly, there needs to be something akin to that being done publicly. Yesterday, my wife and I were sitting at Chipotle outside eating, and a young lady comes walking in with a rather sheer jumper suit, kind of like a big yoga suit, rather loose fitting, no bra, and you could see the private parts quite easily. I had to instantly turn away, which I did, but wow. And then there was all kinds of that sort of thing. Went to Aldi's, sitting there waiting in the car for my wife. to deliberately just look at the lady's hair for a second and then look away, close my eyes, sit back and relax. I mean, my gosh, can I have my eyes open anymore out in public? It was insane. You'd think that it was just like a pantyhose and bra. The whole midsection opened up real tight, real thin. Now, I guess as a man, I'm not supposed to say these things because men can't say those things. And if you noticed, well, then shame on you. Well, I don't really fall for that garbage because you know what? My wife told me that before she goes out every day, I mean, she looks in the mirror, makes sure she looks presentable, kind of wonders before she puts her shoes on, do these match with this outfit okay? And just saying, in effect, that women understand how they're going out in public. They give it some thought. She even said it's really not the way it is for you because you kind of just put on your jeans, put on your t-shirt, and out you go. I mean, if it weren't for her, sometimes I wouldn't even go out matching. She has to tell me sometimes, no, those shoes, those socks, whatever, the shirt with those pants, the wrong style, wrong color. I don't really think that way. I know a lot of men are more savvy than I am about appearances, but I think it's generally true, a general truism, that women are aware of how they're looking and they care about it, and that when women dress explicitly provocative, sexually provocative, that they know it. My wife kind of told me this because I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt and saying, they're sweet and it's nice talking with them and they just don't understand. It's just what happens to be available. My wife tells me that actually to find things that don't look like that, it is true that you do have to go out of your way to find places with normal clothing. I mean, we went out yesterday and it was a little warm and muggy and she had on shorts and I always just think of them as short pants because they're pants that are short. But anyway, nothing like what women are wearing now, typically or too commonly. And she told me that she did have to go out of the way to find pants like that to me looked perfectly nice and stylish and presentable and decent. And but she said, yeah, it is harder to find clothing like that, and that sometimes you will feel like you're out of style, especially in some settings. So it is true that women often are just grabbing the clothes off the rack and that culture is promoting them. It's amazing what they call feminism and how they encourage women to be hypersexual more and more and more. I mean, now it's just normal to see women walking out in, I guess they call it yoga pants. I just think of them as black pantyhose. It's basically what they are. Well, yeah, I saw another woman like that. I was walking out of work yesterday and walking up the sidewalk like that. I mean, I deliberately had to turn away. It was insane. One time I was in an elevator was in a college, and the young lady had on a little bit of a vest or something, a little bit covering, but basically she was just there in her bra. And fortunately, there's a couple other people in the elevator there with me, but wow. I mean, just, yep, stare at the floor. It's just getting worse and worse. And what to do about it? Well, as a man, look away. Understand that some of them maybe don't especially know what they're doing, but I guess probably that's sort of naive, and most of them do know exactly what they're doing and they do want the attention. But I heard a story on some podcast the other day. I guess some 70-year-old guy walks up to a lady who's in the gym and just dressed like she's ready to almost start putting her clothes on, and he says to her, "Hey, are those real?" And it turned out she recently just did have a boob job. And so she was looking for attention, obviously. That's why she got the boob job, right? And that's why she's there working out in the gym along with a bunch of men, strutting her stuff and knowing that a big lightning rod for attention. Does that give a man a right to do that? No. Now, on the flip side, I haven't seen the Barbie movie, but I understand that all the Kens are, part of the patriarchy, this great big conspiracy theory of, doesn't often get called a conspiracy theory, kind of like the conspiracy theory of 1619 and how all the framers of the Constitution came together and made it all completely to the destruction of minorities so that all to only their advantage. I mean, talk about a big conspiracy theory, right? But where does if you try to bring up the conspiracy theory about the creature from Jekyll Island, that book about the formation of the Fed, where literally bankers and people of the bankster class met at Jekyll Island, an island on a lake in Georgia, I think, in order to start for the third time now trying to create a Federal Reserve. And they did it literally incognito, wearing outfits, secret outfits, and all came under assumed names or travel by train or whatever. Anyway, of course, that's called a conspiracy theory, and you certainly wouldn't find it talked about on a .gov site or a .edu site or whatever, but it seems to be rather plausible to me. Talk about the conspiracy theory of, gee, why is it that, what's it called, Building Number 7? Fell perfectly flat as though it were a demolition. Very doubtful that it was at all close enough to the Twin Towers in order for the heat there to have even a partial collapse of it. But yet it all just dropped down perfectly straight like a demolition. That seems weird. Well, anyway, you don't say things like that in public because then you're a conspiracy theorist. Or, well, anyway, here's this conspiracy theory of the patriarchy. I guess I'm really, really bad because I'm white, so I guess that means I'm a white supremacist. But on top of that, I'm a male, so that means I'm part of the patriarchy. And I've been faithful all my life to my one wife, and so I guess that means the new term is, cisgender. And I guess because I wouldn't be willing to commit adultery or let alone, have sex with the transgender, that means I'm a transphobe. And what else? Oh yes, I'm a committed Roman Catholic, normally attending the Latin Mass. And so that's been targeted by our Biden administration, meaning that I am potentially, good suspect for, have it on the radar as a domestic terrorist. And you don't know what to do but to just mock these terms anymore. So back to the Barbie movie, and all the Kens are of the patriarchy. To be fair though, it is true, absolutely. There are men. Oh, who's this guy now? I forget his name. He's been interviewed by Tucker Carlson and a lot of big shots. Anyway, some young guy who is kind of heralded as this poor, persecuted white male. He's a social media influencer. Well, anyway, so he's heralded as the poor, oppressed white male. Well, he really fits in great with the patriarchy version of the Ken doll in the Barbie movie, apparently. Yeah, because it turns out he's produced porn movies and he's hustled a lot of women into it and gotten them to agree, thinking they're his girlfriend, for a couple of weeks, to get a bunch of video footage out of him, and I guess that's how he got his start. So, wow. Yeah, with the de-Christianizing the anti-Christian West. What happened to all this talk about the Jezebel spirit? Jezebel, a real woman, wife of Ahaz, a very nasty woman. She was his neck, all right. Great power and influence, and for the devil, for Baal. But on the side here now about men, wow, is there a sense of toxic masculinity? Well, the term is thrown around to, any guy who doesn't act like a girl, basically. So the term is kind of rightly mocked, but, it has its truth that there are men who are like this, whoever the social media influencer guy is, producing porn and using women as commodities and just vile. And yet some conservative men thinking, oh, here's a spokesman for the poor oppressed white man who's just a normal red-blooded healthy American. No, that is toxic masculinity. There would be men who approach these topics in those ways, which, nope, they don't get a free pass either. Not okay, not all right. And yes, there's the Jezebel, the toxic femininity. Yep, has to be called out. I've obviously spent most of my time calling that out here because on the other side, sometimes unfairly, but sometimes fairly, the toxic masculinity, the antichrist American male figure, the typical Roman male, the man who his wife is expected to be faithful to him, but it's just understood he doesn't have to be faithful to her. That kind of version of masculinity, Roman, pagan, anti-Christian notion of masculinity, which rejects feminism. Well, just because it rejects feminism, that doesn't mean that it's okay. It's not okay. It is equally demonic. So the feminism, that's what's hard to call out, though, especially as a man. Well, now here's the untouchable topic. I guess I don't dare say the name, or I suppose I could well be deleted from my channel. But anyway, for anybody who promotes the murder of the most innocent among us, yeah, I call it murder because that's what it is, a human being, and you're in favor of killing it. And the vast majority of the time is so that you can sleep around without consequences. We used to have an S word for that, and I wouldn't use it because that's nasty, mean, not polite, but these sorts of things used to be called out, but now you don't dare name anything related even to this, A word regarding the murder of the most innocent among us. Yeah, that's toxic, all right. Talk about Molech worship. Wow. Whoever the god Molech is, he thought he had it good when he had the babies put on searing hot brass arms for them to roll off into the fire and fry to death, burn to death. Well, wow, is he ever rollicking in the good times now, So, as a male, yeah, I don't care. That's, I don't fall into this garbage rhetoric. As a white man, if I were back in the Civil War days, I hope I would have spoken out and not fallen for, well, you can't talk about it because you're not a black man, or so you can't speak to these issues, or because you're not a plantation owner, so your opinion doesn't matter, or, same thing during World War II times. I hope I would have spoken out. certainly think so, that even though I'm not Jewish, hey, oh, you're a Christian, this is a Jewish problem. This is up to them to deal with. Who do you think you are, trying to help them out like you're their savior or something? No, I hope I wouldn't have fallen for that garbage rhetoric and I would have spoken. But anyway, the same thing here too. Well, you're not a woman, so you can't talk about what goes on in the womb. Well, actually, what goes on in the womb is a separate human being, a human being who needs constant care from the woman. Yes, and we all know how this process works, right? Jump in the sack, and this often is the result. That's just the way nature always has been. Surprise, surprise. I mean, even if it's in the tiny, infinitesimally small percentage where it actually is due to rape, incest, or life of the mother, then I don't know, what are we talking? Maybe 3%? And that's horrible. Those are grave evils, the rape and incest. But anyway, I mean, even in the case of the life of the mother, this is another human being who didn't have anything to do with this. So it's not okay to murder him, right? Yeah, I don't care that I'm a male and that it's not possible for me to be pregnant. Nonetheless, that's the most innocent among us. So a murder is murder. That's really all the reason I need right there. I'm not even relying on my Christian faith about it right now. Well, Trent Horn, he's a great Catholic apologist, and he has a video about this where he says, hey, just from the grounds of reason, don't think I'm trying to impose my religion on you. This is just rationality. That's all in science, We all know when life begins, and we're not going to get into the conversation of, yeah, but when does the soul come? We don't have to even have that conversation, right? It is a human life. That's not a question, and not in the sense that a cell in your toe is human, a human cell, right? No, we're talking... all of this kind of toxic femininity of feminism, the spirit of Jezebel, this antichrist spirit destroying our society and being involved in hypersexualizing it, and this gross version of freedom where you do what you can do whatever you want. Yeah, Catholicism is so filled with rules. That's so oppressive. God just isn't fair. He makes it too hard. You think that's hard? Yeah, try not having rules, okay? Try the do what thou wilt philosophy. See how you want to talk about hard? How about not having any rules? How about you're 14 years old, my parents shouldn't be able to tell me what to do and I want to have sex, so I'm going to do it. All right, you go see how that turns out for you. You want to talk about hard? With things that you might well suffer with the rest of your life, or some things might make your life like real short, ending that night maybe. Whether it's the hookup culture and your quick app or whatever way you're going about hopping in the sack with complete strangers. Who knows what you're getting into? You want to talk about hard? Yeah, you talk about the devil's way, where he gives you your freedom. And that notion of total promiscuity and freedom as license, that really quickly turns not into freedom, but the worst kind of bondage, right? The examples of abusing alcohol or abusing drugs, whatever. So yeah, following God's way really is a whole lot more liberating, where you actually know where the lines of the road are, because you don't really want to be liberated to drive off the road. Because then you can enjoy your ride and the music and conversation and get to your destination in decent time. Enjoy the trip too. And, it works out a whole lot better when you just stay on the road and follow the markers. Not having public indecent exposure. Well, I'm on the way home from work there too, in the case of a man. He had his pants hanging down. He had rather sheer white underwear. And I mean, his pants were hanging right down completely below his arse. And, when I was a kid anyway, 50 years ago, oh yeah, that would have been called indecent exposure. I have little doubt that if a cop saw that, he'd be, I don't think even just fined, I think arrested. But anyway, I mean, now, well, that's just perfectly normal. And you can't say anything about it. I mean, in that case, it's a man, right? So it's really quite shocking where our society is going quickly. A typical meeting place is becoming Baker Bookhouse. That's kind of weird. I mean, there's other big coffee shops slash food outlets that have a lot more variety, have a lot more help, a lot more seating. But no, don't want to be there because I don't. Well, in one of them I went to and I had my breviary in my hand that I was going to read, and one of the workers there, this happened to be at Panera Bread, and he thought that it was a Bible, and he kind of sneered at me and said, "Oh, bring in your Bible, huh?" And, it's like, I'm not afraid to be a witness. That's great. I want to be a witness for Christ, yes. But, sometimes, like, I've just had a hard day working maybe, and I want to sit down with coffee and I want to plan stuff and I want to have a quiet conversation with my wife, or maybe I'm there with my dad or whatever. I'm not really wanting to fight right now. I like to do street evangelization. I mean, I recommend St. Paul Street Evangelization, and they've got all the tools you could want for evangelizing out in public as a Catholic. That's great. I love that. I'm all behind that. I want to do that more. I'd love to see myself doing that once every week. Well, anyway, when I'm wanting to go out for coffee, that's not what I'm wanting to do, okay? Maybe leave a track at the most, maybe leave a miraculous medal or a rosary with a little rosary pamphlet explaining how to do it. Maybe, that would be great. But I don't do at all enough of that. That's not why I'm going to a coffee shop, okay? So I'm finding that this kind of parallel economies, is becoming more real. I want to go to a place where I'm not going to get sneered at because maybe I brought my Bible. I just want to read it and pray and have some quiet time and take some notes and do a little planning and some conversation. And I'm not looking for a fight, okay? I'm wanting some quiet time, no apology. And so more and more to go out. I mean, my gosh, like I said, just going out to Chipotle or going out to that one time at Panera Bread, or more and more the culture is getting more and more hostile to Christianity. If you haven't noticed that, I guess, take the blinders off your eyes or quit trying to pretend that we're living in the America that we had 20 years ago. This isn't America anymore. I'm not sure how black-pilled I am, but I lean toward the idea that America was the Sphinx, the sign on the dollar bill, the eagle. That's a wacky looking eagle. Why? Because at first it was designed as a sphinx. And actually that is the truth of America, that it always was designed to transform into something completely different. And, Barack Hussein Obama said that's what he was going to do, was fundamentally transform America. Well, between him and the Clintons and the Bidens and a whole lot of useful idiots and rhino Republicans and all, I suspect that they've done it. A whole lot of other rather innocent among us. Let's talk about I don't know, what about the 10-year-old boy? That's the average age, I understand, of children being introduced to pornography, stuff I never had access to, never could have when I was a kid, back in the 60s and 70s. And now, oh yeah, there's access, all right, real quick and easy. All right, well, these women who are dressing this way, walking this way, I'm sure the vast majority of them, it's not just because, well, gosh, that's the only thing on the rack, and I just, it's just kind of the normal thing now. I'm sure that for a majority of them, they know exactly what they're doing. They want to use their femininity to sexualize the culture. They want the looks. They're promoting lust, and they know it, and they love it. And they're very ready to pounce on anybody who's dumb enough to, actually stare, or let alone make some kind of comment or catcall, right? Then, oh yeah, they're going to be real quick on the draw there to enjoy jumping on that, and which of course is wrong, and it should be stopped and jumped on. But anyway, they're looking for it, and then they're ready to jump on it, right? All right, well, what does this do then? When they're dressing like that, acting like that, knowing what they're doing, and you've got these 10-year-old boys, or let's say maybe their hormones are just kicking in, they're 12 years old or something, and they're seeing that, and they're probably going to notice, all right, and they might not know better than not to look twice, right? And you know what? What if you are kind of helping, in a sense, to groom them? In a sense, you're a groomer. You're promoting that. You're inciting that, and you know it. And now when you're doing it, though, probably your target isn't, the 10 or the 12-year-old boy, but they're out there too as much as anybody else, right? That's what you're doing. You see it, you notice it, and you continue doing it. So again, in a sense, you are helping to pervert, promoting this culture of hypersexualization. That's grave evil. He or she who causes one of the least of these to stumble, it would be better for them to have a millstone tied around their neck and for them to be thrown into the sea. When you're inciting grave evil, and in this case, among the young, the very young, you have something to dance for all right. You need to be called out, all right. And right now, I'm doing it. No apologies. Because it's not out of some kind of animosity or hatred. No, quite the opposite. It's a big warning. You're headed for a cliff. I don't want to see you go over it. But if you're still listening at this point, maybe okay, maybe you're angry, fine. But before you lash out or whatever, or form your opinion too readily, I would say take it to God in prayer. Maybe you're not even sure you believe in God. Well, chances are when things go really bad for you, it seems like all of a sudden you do believe in God, maybe only in the sense that you blame Him for it. Maybe you don't like what I've been saying and you're really upset, you're really angry. Maybe you believe in God more or less, maybe not much at all really. Okay, what's it going to hurt? You go ahead and pray. All right, God, I don't know if you're really there or not. No, I'm being serious, okay? Kind of think I'm talking to myself here, but anyway, if I'm being wrong or if I've done something, fine, let me know. I'm here. I'm listening. We all have fallen short of the glory of God. All of us, everybody. Nobody can earn their salvation. So no, we all fall short of the glory of God. Nobody can earn their salvation. Nobody can put God in a position to where now He owes you heaven, eternal life. No. So we have sinned. God's grace is sufficient. So if your conscience is not seared and you're willing to call out to God, yes, you can receive complete forgiveness. And then, no, you don't have that notion of freedom as license, as this libertinism anymore. So, yes, you will have to walk in holiness. And we're renewed day by day. As you draw near to me, I will draw near to you, God said in James. So then it's a lifelong process of sanctification, growing in holiness, and you need to do that. And if you don't really finish the job by the end, you know what? There's purgatory. And so that's not for people who, are damned. No, that's called hell. That's where they go right away. No, we're talking about people who are saved. You're saved and you're purified, and then you're in God's presence. And that can be you too. Even if you murdered your own child, even if you pressured someone to do that, even if you have not only dressed looking like a prostitute, including in front of, very young men, leading them into sin, it can all be forgiven. So that's the good news. I guess that should end this rant, which seems like a risky one to do, but anyway, have a good day.